£50,000 a year. That puts you well above the middle of the UK earnings distribution. Most workers earn less than that. So why does it still feel like you're barely keeping your head above water? Why does payday come, and within 4 days, you're already watching the balance? Why does the phrase, "I earn good money," feel like something you say to other people, but not something you actually feel? This is not a story about bad decisions. It's not about avocado toast or too many subscriptions or a holiday you shouldn't have taken. This is a story about a number that sounds like safety and a system that makes sure it never quite is. If you earn around £50,000 a year and you feel like you should be further ahead than you are, this video is for you. And by the end of it, you'll know exactly why, not vaguely. Exactly. Let's talk about your actual life. Not the salary, the life. You earn £50,000. Maybe a little under, maybe a little over. You've worked hard to get here. A promotion you waited 3 years for, a move to a bigger city, a job change that felt like a risk at the time, and yet, you open your banking app on a Tuesday evening and you feel the same low-grade anxiety, the same mental maths before you tap your card at the supermarket, the same quiet calculation every time someone suggests a weekend away. Because here's what £50,000 actually looks like in real life. There's the rent. If you're in a 2-bed, that's over £1,200 a month across most of England. More in London, far more in some parts of London. There's the council tax. Band D in England now averages £2,392 a year. That's nearly £200 a month, going out by direct debit every month, forever. There's the energy, the price cap, the standing charge, the way your bill went up and then didn't really come back down. There's the student loan. If you went to university in England after 2012, you're likely on Plan 2. In 2026, you're repaying 9% of everything above £29,385. That's around £1,855 a year leaving your pay before it ever reaches your account. There's the pension contribution, which you should be making and probably are. There's the car insurance that renewed and was somehow 20% higher than last year. The phone contract, the broadband, the contents insurance. The gym you use twice a week that still costs £45 a month. And if you've tried to see an NHS dentist recently and couldn't get one, you'll know that free at the point of use has a few asterisks now. All of this on a salary that most people in this country would call good money. That's the paradox this video is about. So here's the question I want to answer today. Not why is life expensive? Everyone knows that. Not how do I budget better? That's not what this is. The real question is this. At £50,000 a year in 2026, what does your actual financial position look like after every pound the system takes and every cost that comes with living a normal life in Britain? And what specific mechanisms mean that your net financial power is significantly weaker than the gross number suggests? Because once you understand the mechanisms, you stop blaming yourself. And once you stop blaming yourself, you can actually start fixing it. Let's put some numbers on the ground. The median gross annual earnings for full-time employees in the UK is £39,039. £50,000 is nearly 30% above that. You'd think 30% above the median would feel comfortable. It doesn't. And in a moment, I'll show you exactly why. The personal allowance, the amount you earn before you pay income tax, is £12,570. It has been frozen since 2021. It was supposed to increase with earnings, as it always had. Instead, it's been frozen until at least 2028. What does that mean for a real person? It means that every pay rise you've received since 2021 has been taxed at a higher effective rate than your headline tax band suggests. The threshold didn't move, but prices did, and wages slowly did too. More of your income has silently crept into higher tax territory, not because you negotiated it, but because the government held the line and let inflation do the work. This is fiscal drag, and if you earn £50,000, it's been quietly eating your pay rises for 4 years. Average rents across England are now running at over £1,200 a month, higher in cities. Significantly higher in London, where a 2-bed in many zones will cost you north of £2,000. At £50,000 gross, which becomes around £3,140 net per month before pension, city rents alone can consume 40% or more of your take-home pay, before food, before transport, before savings, before anything else. The general rule from financial planners is that housing costs should be no more than 30% of net income. For a lot of people at this salary, that line has already been crossed. And finally, according to the Money and Pension Service, around 1 in 3 British adults cannot cover an unexpected bill of £850 without borrowing. 1 in 3. These are not people in poverty. Many of them earn reasonable wages. They're just people whose costs have consumed everything that wages provide. That is the financial resilience of modern Britain. 4 numbers, let them settle. There's a belief that most people around this income level carry. It's not spoken out loud. It's more of a background assumption. Something absorbed from school, from parents, from every cultural message about doing well. And it goes like this. Once you hit a certain number, money stops being the problem. Once you get past 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever the number is in your head, the anxiety is supposed to ease. The calculations are supposed to stop. The feeling of being financially precarious is supposed to belong to someone else. This belief is wrong. And it's not wrong because you're doing something wrong. It's wrong because the cost structure of British life scales with your income in ways that nobody tells you about. When your income goes up, your student loan repayment goes up, your income tax goes up, and critically, your expectations for your own life, quite reasonably, go up too. You're not going to keep living in a house share in your early 30s if you're earning 50 grand. You're going to rent somewhere with a proper kitchen and maybe a spare room, which costs more. Because the things that a £50,000 salary buys you, a decent flat, a functioning car, a pension, a modest social life, cost more than those things used to cost. The illusion is that a good salary buys you financial peace. What a good salary actually buys you in 2026 is a higher standard of normal. And normal in 2026 is expensive. The anxiety doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. It becomes, I earn this much and I still feel like I'm running in place. Which is not a mindset problem, it's an arithmetic problem. Let me show you the actual mechanism, not the general idea, the actual cogs. Before we go through the numbers, take a breath, because this next bit is the part nobody ever explains clearly, and it's the reason your payslip always surprises you. In England, the income tax system works like this. The first £12,570 you earn, no tax. That's your personal allowance. From £12,570 to £50,270, you pay 20%. That's the basic rate band. From £50,270 upwards, you pay 40%. That's the higher rate. So if you earn £50,000, almost your entire salary is taxed at 20%. But if you earn £50,500, just £500 more, those top £230 are taxed at 40%. Now here's where it gets structural. The higher rate threshold, the point at which you start paying 40%, is £50,270. It has not meaningfully moved in years relative to earnings. Meanwhile, wages have been rising, not fast, but rising. What that means is the number of people crossing into the 40% band is growing, not because they've suddenly become high earners, but because the threshold didn't keep pace. This is fiscal drag in its purest form. The government collects more tax without ever changing the rates. They just hold the threshold still and let time do the work. If you're on £50,000 right now, you're sitting just below the 40% threshold. A pay rise, something you've earned, fought for, possibly moved jobs to get, will push some of that income into higher rate territory. Your gross goes up by £2,000, your net goes up by considerably less than that. And if you have a Plan 2 student loan on top, your marginal effective rate on anything above £29,385 includes an additional 9%. Let me put that together. For someone on £50,000 with a Plan student loan on earnings between £29,385 and £50,270, you're paying 20% income tax, 8% national insurance, and 9% student loan. That's an effective marginal rate of 37 pence in every pound. Push past £50,270, and that income tax rate jumps to 40%. With national insurance, you're at 42 pence. 37 to 42% of every additional pound you earn gone before it reaches your account. That's not a scandal. That's the system working exactly as designed. But nobody hands you a leaflet explaining it when you sign your employment contract. And there's one more layer. Because your personal allowance is frozen at £12,570 and prices have risen significantly since that freeze began, the real value of your tax-free income has fallen. You're effectively paying tax on money that, in purchasing power terms, you don't actually have. This is the machine underneath the number. This is why the salary sounds like one thing and the bank balance looks like another. Let me make this real. This is Priya. She's 33. She lives in Birmingham, in Harborne specifically, the kind of area that felt affordable 5 years ago and no longer quite does. She's a senior HR manager at a logistics company. She earns £50,000. She lives with her partner Dan, who's 35 and earns £28,000 working in the NHS. They rent a 2-bed terrace together. They've been together 6 years. They'd like to buy. They'd like to have a child in the next couple of years. They're trying to save, genuinely trying, and they cannot work out why it feels so hard. When people ask Priya how she's doing financially, she says fine, yeah, can't complain. Because she knows she earns a good salary. She knows she's fortunate. She doesn't feel like she has the right to say it's hard, but it is hard. Here's what her month actually looks like. Priya's gross salary is £50,000. That does not become £4,166 a month in her bank account. After income tax, national insurance, and her plan, 2 student loan repayments, it's closer to £3,140 a month. She contributes 5% to her workplace pension. Her employer adds 3%. That's £208 a month redirected to her pension. The right thing to do, but still not in her current account. Net usable take-home after pension, approximately £2,930 a month. Now the fixed costs, rent, £775. Her half of the 2-bed terrace she shares with Dan. The full rent on the property is £1,550 a month. That's the going rate for Harborne in 2026. Council tax, £100. Her half of their Band C Birmingham bill. Energy, £80 her half. Contents and renters insurance, £18. Broadband and phone, £55. Car insurance, £62. It renewed in February. It went up. Petrol, £90. She drives to work 3 days a week. Groceries, £200. They cook at home most evenings. Subscriptions, streaming, Spotify. A cloud backup she forgot she was paying for, £35. Total fixed and near-fixed costs, £1,415. Surplus before savings, social life, clothes, haircuts, birthday presents, a meal out, a dentist appointment, a new tire, £1,515. £1,515. That sounds like breathing room, until you account for what it still has to cover. Every non-fixed cost of a human life. Clothes that wear out, a haircut every 6 weeks, a birthday present for a friend, a private dentist because the NHS waiting list in her area is over 2 years, a tire, a weekend away once a year, the occasional takeaway on a Friday when neither of them has the energy to cook, and then the things that actually build a future. A house deposit, 3 months of emergency savings, a contribution to the rainy day that will absolutely arrive, it just hasn't yet. Once you account for all of that, realistically, not harshly, the actual deployable surplus most months is somewhere between £500 and £700. That is not a failure of discipline. That is not a problem Priya created. That is what the arithmetic produces when you subtract what Britain actually costs from what Britain actually pays. And this is before maternity leave, before a child. And in Birmingham, full-time nursery for a child under 3 will cost £1,200 to £1,500 a month. Before the boiler breaks, or the car needs work, or someone gets ill and needs time off. Priya is not irresponsible. Priya is not bad with money. Priya is living in 2026. Let's put Priya's numbers side by side with what they looked like 10 years ago, So you can see exactly what's shifted. In 2016, someone earning the real terms equivalent of Priya's salary, adjusted for inflation, roughly £38,000 at the time, would have taken home around £2,530 a month. Average rent for a two-bed in Birmingham in 2016, approximately £650 a month. Her half, around £325. Council tax band C in Birmingham in 2016, approximately £1,350 a year. Her half of the monthly bill was about £56. Fixed costs in 2016, roughly £1,000. Monthly surplus, approximately £1,530. Now in 2026. Same person, real terms equivalent salary, same proportional career position. Net take-home after pension, £2,930. Fixed costs, £1,415. Gross surplus, £1,515. Realistic deployable surplus after discretionary spending, £500 to £700. The salary, in real terms, is broadly similar. But the gap between gross surplus and what actually moves has more than halved in a decade. That's not bad luck. That's not lifestyle inflation. Priya isn't living a dramatically different life. That's a decade in which housing costs, energy, council tax, and insurance all rose faster than the wage growth she actually received. And here's the calculation that really matters. If Priya wants to save a 10% deposit on a modest first-time buyer home in Birmingham, call it £240,000, close to the Birmingham entry-level average in 2026, she needs £24,000. Saving £500 a month consistently, that deposit takes 4 years. That's assuming no emergencies, no rent increases, which historically is not a safe assumption, no childcare costs if she and Dan have a child before the deposit is saved. And if they do, those costs will pause the savings entirely. This is not a story about someone failing to save. This is a story about the maths of 2026. The deposit window is long. The costs are rising. The surplus is thinner than the salary suggests. So what can Priya actually do? I want to show you two versions of the next 5 years. Not a miracle versus a disaster. Two slightly different decisions and what they compound into. Priya A, the default path. Priya A earns £50,000. She gets a pay rise next April, 3%, which after fiscal drag and her student loan repayment lands as about 1.8% in her pocket. She spends it before she thinks about it because her life expanded slightly when she got the last one. She doesn't calculate her surplus. She watches her balance, which usually seems fine until it suddenly doesn't. She saves what's left at the end of the month. Some months that's £200. Some months it's nothing. In 5 years, she has approximately £7,000 in savings. The deposit is no closer than it was. She's not worse off exactly. She's just static. Priya B, the deliberate path. Priya B earns £50,000. She does one thing differently. She calculates her actual surplus, not the gross salary, not the bank balance, the surplus after every fixed cost. And she treats that number as her real financial starting point. She decides to give every pay rise a job before lifestyle takes it. When the 3% rise comes through, she doesn't feel it in her spending because she's already allocated it. Half goes into her lifetime ISA because she's not yet 40, and the 25% government bonus on top is free money she has no reason to leave on the table. The other half builds her emergency fund in an easy access cash ISA, 3 months of expenses, sitting there so that a broken boiler or a gap between jobs doesn't undo everything. By year 2, her emergency fund is solid. Her lifetime ISA is growing. She hasn't dramatically changed her lifestyle. In fact, she barely notices the difference day to day because she allocated before she could spend. By year 5, she has roughly £19,000 in savings, with the lifetime ISA bonus adding meaningfully to the total. The deposit is real. It's no longer a 10-year horizon. It's a 2 or 3 year one. And crucially, she got there without a second income, without an inheritance, and without giving up her life in the meantime. The difference between Priya A and Priya B is not income. It's not luck. It's knowing the surplus number and giving it somewhere to go before the month takes it. One rule. Write it down if you need to. Your salary is not your surplus. Your surplus is your salary. The gross number is what companies advertise, what LinkedIn shows, what you mention when it comes up. The surplus is the number that actually determines your financial life. Two people can earn identical salaries and have completely different surpluses, depending on where they live, what they owe, how their costs are structured. Calculate your surplus, not as a one-off exercise, as a standing piece of knowledge. Know it the way you know your salary, because it's the number that actually matters. We've been taught, and I mean this seriously as a cultural thing, not a personal failing, to measure financial success by gross income. That's how job ads work. That's how mortgages are marketed. That's how status is communicated. She's on 60 grand, he's just hit 6 figures. But gross income is a pre-tax, pre-cost fiction. What you actually have, what actually determines whether you feel financially free or financially stuck, is not the number at the top of your payslip. It's what remains after the government has taken its share, after the landlord has taken theirs, after the energy company and the council and the loan company and the pension provider and the direct debit tray have all taken theirs. That remainder, that surplus, is the only number that actually moves your life forward. And for a lot of people earning £50,000 in Britain right now, that remainder is smaller than anyone told them it would be. Not because they've failed, because the system was designed, or has evolved, to consume exactly that amount. Knowing that doesn't fix it overnight, but it changes what you do next. I want to ask you something. After your fixed costs, rent or mortgage, council tax, energy, transport, food, everything that isn't optional, what does your actual monthly surplus look like? Not the theoretical one, not the budget you wrote in January, the real one. Tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And if the number surprises you, either way, that's the conversation this channel exists to have.